Welcome back to Morning Line, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Talking this morning the opioid epidemic in Tennessee and what's being done perhaps here and across the country. Legislation. Senator Steve Dickerson's with us this morning along with Representative Bryan. Both of them happen to be physicians as well. And they have legislation right now that will, I guess, toughen the penalties for folks caught with some of these drugs like fentanyl now that we see that are killing people. And appreciate you both coming on. So much I want to ask you, but we got callers as well. Let's go to Joe. Joe, good morning.
Good morning, Nick.
Hi, Joe.
Just a question for the doctors and a statement. Where do people it's selling these drugs get the fentanyl and the bootleg Oxycontin and Oxycodone, and to buy, best of my knowledge, a lot of the street people that's are using heroin and methamphetamines. So where does this coexist together? And where does these stuff come? Where's this? How do these people get the fentanyl and the carfentanil and the Oxycontin and Oxycodone from? Bootleg people.
I'll go first.
Yeah. Okay.
Doctors.
So great. Those are great questions. So the first thing is fentanyl can be manufactured in a lab. And you would hope a medication would be manufactured in a lab, owned or operated or overseen at least by the federal government, large pharmaceutical manufacturers with certain quality controls in place. In fact, it can be manufactured in any sort of lab, and a lot of this comes from China apparently, and some across the border from Mexico. And
hard to keep it from getting across the border.
Right.
I mean,
very
can we
difficult.
monitor that? Yeah.
Very, very difficult. And as I understand it, it comes in drums. Looks like anything. It could look like motor oil, look like gasoline. You can stamp anything you want to on it. So it comes across the border, and we're seeing this in Tennessee now, where you will have counterfeit pill manufacturing. Places pop up in garages, literally. And I've actually been in the TBI plane. We surveilled one in East Nashville where they had a pill press. They had whatever the cornstarch or the binder is, the inert substance from the pill, and they literally had somebody in there with an eyedropper of fentanyl. And so what they then do is they stamp this stuff. It looks completely indistinguishable to the naked eye, like a pill of oxycodone or hydrocodone or what have you, and they just simply take it and sell it on the street. And it's that simple.
Yeah. And what what I'm hearing is to echo what Senator Dickerson is saying is that wherever they're manufacturing, and you hear from China or in other illegal labs, or if it's coming through Mexico, then they're getting it to gangs here in Tennessee, and then they're distributing it that way. And you're hearing potentially about turf wars or how they're getting that out distributed. Basically, that's how they earn their money, or how they get their money is through the gang distribution.
And the caller had also mentioned, I think, heroin and methamphetamine. Yeah. Those are already considered to be drugs. I think they probably have Class A felonies associated with trafficking those. What we're trying to do is come up with a way to take this new wave of chemicals and try to put them on a par with that. And as physicians also, what we're trying to do is what I call Goldilocks public policy. That is, you want to have not too much, not too little, just right. We also need to make sure that patients and physicians still have access to the medications. And so should one of these synthetic, or what we would call an analog to fentanyl, become clinically relevant, that is, maybe we need to use in the operating room, we're trying to make sure that physicians, hospitals, pharmacists also have the proper parameters to use those in a legal and safe manner.
I guess it's important to remember, as you just said, that these drugs, the ones that are manufactured by pharmaceuticals, have legitimate uses in operate. On the other hand, you said this is multifaceted. Of course it is. All right, so you got these laws that will target the bad guys that are making it and bringing it in. What about now society as a whole? No one wants to be in pain, and everyone wants a pill when they're in pain to make them feel better. And I'm just curious, one of the ongoing debates nationwide is on this medical marijuana. Now, we're not talking about recreational marijuana here in Tennessee like they have in Colorado, but the marijuana oils that even the NFL now is looking at the possibility of, instead of pumping their players full of opioids, if there can be a hemp oil of some type that helps reduce swelling. You guys know what I'm talking about, the CPBs or whatever that's called. Is there a place for that maybe in Tennessee as we look toward medical, okay, not recreational, medical marijuana that doesn't have an active THC in it, but more the other stuff that affects pain and swelling in your bodies? And whether you believe the science is enough to convince the two of you.
So we may or may not agree on this part of our conversation, but I'm the sponsor, the Senate sponsor of the medical marijuana bill. I've sponsored it. This in 2018 it'll be my 3rd year, and every year I think we're moving closer to passage, and we're actually building a better bill. And so we've brought in everybody from neuroscientists. We have lawyers, law enforcement, trying to help us come up with, again, and this sounds like I'm minimizing this, but Goldilocks public policy. What's the happy middle? You don't want to have unlimited access to recreational marijuana. That's not a Tennessee value. Also, on the other hand, as a physician, I think there is a legitimate place for cannabis, some form of it, in our medical armamentarium. And so what we're trying to do is strike a balance there and come up with good public policy that answers patients' needs, protects physicians, and makes it accessible enough that people can actually use it and hopefully substitute it for some of these more dangerous medications.
Well, that's what's crazy. Opioids are legal, okay?
Right.
And marijuana, no one's ever OD'd on marijuana, okay, guys? No one has ever OD'd on marijuana. Don't try to tell me someone has, because they haven't. So I don't get it. I mean, and I'm not talking about the psycho stuff that, makes you high. I'm talking about the oils. I just don't get why you guys don't pass this.
So I know my colleague wants to jump in, but I will say that, so medications are scheduled. Schedule 1 basically means that government does not recognize any value. Heroin is Schedule 1. Marijuana is Schedule 1. Cocaine, however, Schedule 2.
How's that? Cocaine's worse than pot, right?
So it actually does have medical value. It's a local anesthetic and a vasoconstrictor. Yeah, and so I'll bet Bryan probably applied some back when I was a resident. You would apply it in people's noses in order to do ENT procedures. But that said, marijuana is, in my opinion, innately safer than cocaine. And for it to be Schedule 1 and for cocaine to be Schedule 2 makes no sense. And I really think the federal government stepped up to the plate and rescheduled that. A lot of this conversation would work itself out. There are about 30 states that have already taken the steps to have some form of medical cannabis or recreational available. Tennessee has a very small bill that we passed a couple years ago to allow some of the oils to be available to children with seizures. The difficult part is there's no mechanism to gain access to those in a legal manner. And if those children are hospitalized, most hospital pharmacies, as of 12 months ago, would not allow the kids to have access to those medications while they're in the hospital. So we've got a lot of work to do, in my opinion. Again, Representative Terry and I may not be on 100% agreement.
Well, a couple of points that he made as far as, and this is discussions that I've had on the Hill as well. A lot of people may not realize this, but methamphetamines and cocaine are both Schedule 2 drugs because they do have some medicinal use. Like you said, cocaine is a local anesthetic. When we do fiber optic intubations, place a breathing tube through somebody's nose, or ENT surgery, ear, nose, and throat surgery, you can apply cocaine and it decreases the bleeding and it numbs up their nose. And so it has a medical property. Methamphetamines, for that same reason, Adderall, or drugs for ADD, binge eating disorder. So they're labeled as a Schedule 2. Marijuana, though, as a Schedule 1. Recently, I think it was just within the last month or so, Andy Harris is a congressman out of Maryland. He's also an anesthesiologist. And I spoke with him earlier this week, and he actually has a bill on research for marijuana. Right now, because it is a Schedule 1, it is much more tightly controlled on how marijuana is used, and so it's kind of in a catch-22. You can't do the research to make it to prove that it's going to it can be a Schedule 2. And so what his bill is looking at doing is to relax the rules on cannabis in order to improve the access to research. And then there are reports out there, and a lot of people don't realize there's things like neuropathy. And with chronic pain and Crohn's disease, that there are reports that cannabis and use the endocannabinoid system, it actually helps decrease the pain with those procedures.
And again, you're not talking about stuff that's getting you high. It's a separate thing.
And that's one of the things.
A big thing for a lot of people is not impairment here, but it's affecting other parts.
And it's one of our districts are different. I have one of the more conservative districts.
But you have MTSU there, and they're doing the hemp research right now.
They are, and that's one of the things. When I've actually polled my district, surveyed my district, and people have come in and polled my district. And when you talk about recreational use or smoking of marijuana or cannabis, it's a no. But then when you ask, are you willing to use the chemicals, THC, CBD, or the other cannabinoids in cannabis for medical use and for research, overwhelmingly it's positive.
That's interesting.
It probably statewide, and you don't want to be driven by polls.
I understand.
Obviously, you want to be driven by good policy and trying to figure out what we can do to improve the quality of life of our constituents. But if you look at the polls, 80%, 85%. I mean, it's unbelievable how well medical cannabis polls throughout.
I think you guys both have a really good approach to that. What's frustrating to me is politics, because you're both good men who I think understand it. You're anesthesiologists, and if you go out in favor of medical marijuana, some challenger someday in your district's going to go, well, he's trying to legalize marijuana. That kind of crap. All right, and that's frustrating, and I understand you have to be aware of politics around you, but that's not what you're advocating. You're advocating stuff that helps people, that doesn't get you high. I think you know how I feel about that. Let's go next to Chris. Chris, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Nick.
Hey, Chris, what's on your mind?
Well, I'm a back patient. I went down to New Orleans after Katrina, working as an electrician, doing primary conduits, the main wires coming in from the transformer, and ended up with a very rare form of MRSA in my spine. Okay, so since then I've had, in the last 4 years alone, I've had 5 surgeries. I've got 18 screws, 9 cages, and I'm just here to tell you, man, I love you, Nick. I love your passion. You're right. I know it just as well as you do. Medicinal marijuana is the answer to this epidemic.
Are you on opioids? Have you been given opioids for treatment of your pain?
Yes, I have. And my doctor, fortunately, I have a great surgeon. I was honest with him, and I told him I use weed. I smoke weed. And I don't need that stuff, man. I get CBD oil, 400 milligram CBD oil from Holland, because we can't get that many milligrams here yet. And I don't need these pills. I do without them, and my doctor says, man, you're living proof. You need to be studied. By any and all rights, I should be a statistic. I should be addicted to opioids, but I'm not. And this has been going on for years. And pain management clinics, they hold a big hand in this. They're creating so many addicts, and they're denying, they kick you out if you test positive for weed. And then what are you going to do? You're going to go find the stuff on the street.
All right, hang tight. On that is interesting. As someone with him who I think is in chronic pain, if he's taking opioids and to treat his pain, he needs to, but then eventually over time, if he's taking them every day, he can become addicted, right?
So not only addicted is a possibility, but a more prominent problem in a gentleman like that with all the surgeries is tolerance.
Oh,
and so your liver basically metabolizes the pills. And so what you might get a milligram today, and then a week from now you need 2 milligrams, and a month from now you need 4 milligrams to achieve the same sort of pain relief, analgesia. And so it's very, very difficult, and he's right about so much of what he said. I've had that conversation with a number of patients, and it's a pretty specific group of patients that I see that I would have this conversation with, but folks come in and they will say, I've tried marijuana, I've tried a pain pill, marijuana works better. What should I do?
Yeah, that's a hard one.
It's a really, it's a really tough question.
Because in the state, it's illegal.
Right. And to echo a little bit of what Senator Dickerson said, it starts out with tolerance, and you get medications, opioids, and you build up a tolerance, and you end up having to take more and more medication. Then you get dependence, where if you don't have the medication in your system, you get withdrawal, and then from that, you have addiction. And what we see oftentimes in anesthesia or surgery, patients that have been taking opioids chronically, they come in and then trying to get them comfortable for back surgery or whatever surgery it is, it's often very difficult, and oftentimes it's multifaceted what we have to do to treat their pain. We might do a nerve block, make their leg numb, or make their arm numb, just to help them tolerate the pain, just because giving them more and more narcotics doesn't necessarily help them at that point in time. Another issue that with the opioid crisis, and this kind of goes along with society as it is today, obesity. And we're seeing more and more patients with sleep apnea.
Okay.
And so one of the things with opioids is you can get respiratory depression. And if somebody has sleep apnea and you're giving them more narcotics, you have to be aware that they're more sensitive and they could overdose and they stop breathing, and it's a delicate balance that we have to have.
Very, very narrow.
Well, let's take a break on that. Your colleagues need to listen to you guys.
You tell them that.
We'll take a break. We'll be back with more calls right after this.
This is